Hey Vault Hunters, JV here, and today I'm sharing my top 5 most needed changes for Borderlands 3. This game has been out for a month now, and many players are well into the end game. It's safe to say people are really enjoying Borderlands 3. Gearbox nailed it, and I couldn't be happier myself. At the same time, no game is perfect, and constructive criticism is healthy. There are ways that they can improve this experience moving forward. Since September, I've been paying close attention to the comment section on my videos, seeing what you guys are talking about, and also evaluating my own experience, and that's where I found these most pressing issues that need to be addressed in the future. Before we move on, this video is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends. I'm here to tell you one of the most ambitious RPGs of 2019 just released, and it's totally free. This game can only really be compared to the biggest console and PC titles out there because it has everything you'd expect out of an RPG. An amazing storyline, awesome 3D graphics, huge boss fights, PvP battles, and hundreds of champions to collect and customize. That's why 10 million players worldwide have already downloaded the game in less than 6 months. In Raid, you have the ability to personally customize your champions, choosing their artifacts and creating a unique mastery build for each one of them. Personally, I love how I can hop on and play whenever I have a second, no matter where I am. I'm always progressing and getting something new, and that's something that Raid does better than many RPGs out there. And I'm not the only one loving it. Raid has almost a perfect score on the Play Store with 300,000 reviews. This is the best time to hop in because the highly anticipated new Faction Wars feature is now live, and players get a new daily login reward for the first 90 days in the game. You can add me on Raid under the name JV2017 and join my clan too if you're quick enough. Go to the description, click on these special links, and you'll get 50,000 silver and a free epic champion as part of the new player program to start your journey. There's never been a better time to play Raid, so check it out now. Back to the video, here are 5 things that need to change in Borderlands. First off, we need more vault space, and this is something that a lot of people have been echoing since the game came out, but I think Paul Tassi put it perfectly in his article released just a few days ago, saying that there are 167 legendary pieces of loot in this game, things that you can find, and everyone wants to collect every single one. The problem is we only have 50 vault slots, and as you guys know, vault space is shared between all of your vault hunters in Borderlands 3. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that you're going to have to max out your backpack space on several vault hunters in order to hold each legendary. And not to mention, we have anointed weapons as well, which provide different versions of the same guns that have specific effects depending on how they drop. If Gearbox is going to add more content in future updates, and we know that they will, that number, the 167, is only going up. It just feels bizarre that the current experience in Borderlands 3 requires that you drop a bunch of legendary weapons because you have nowhere to place them. This is a looter shooter, and we know a lot of people grind Borderlands 3 endlessly for months and even years. I'd argue this is the most important thing they can do for this game because the experience right now is really hampered by vault space. So please extend this for everyone. We really need it. Next up, the way that Mayhem mode works across the board needs to be looked at. It needs to be tweaked. And first and foremost, modifiers are a problem because there are several that are just ridiculous and people will instantly re-roll them. It doesn't matter what other combinations you have. For example, reflecting projectiles. I don't care what kind of special build you're running in Borderlands 3, most of these involve shooting enemies, and this is one that forces you to change the way you play so much that it's not worth the time and it's not even fun. You also have the problem with modifiers offsetting each other, and this happens so frequently. I want to say it's more than 50% of the time when I'm running Mayhem. For example, I'll see enemies take less elemental damage and more normal bullet damage, and at the same time, I'll have enemies take less normal damage and more elemental bullet damage. That's just redundant. It's very strange, and it happens so often that it kind of blows my mind. There's also an extremely important Mayhem mode glitch that you guys brought to my attention on my Mayhem mode explained video. And the issue is that some people can access Mayhem in true Vault Hunter mode, but others can't. They have to beat the story first. And I think we've narrowed it down to console players. On Xbox One and PlayStation 4, you guys are not able to activate Mayhem mode on True Vault Hunter mode unless you get to the end of the story. Meanwhile, on PC, as soon as I hit level 35 or something and finished the story for the first time and then went back on True Vault Hunter, I could immediately access Mayhem once I got back to Sanctuary. For my money, that's how it's supposed to work. Mayhem is a much better experience overall. It rewards you for making the game slightly more difficult when it was already pretty easy in the first place. So the fact that console players can't do that is really insane, and I'm surprised that Gearbox has not addressed this yet. It absolutely needs to be fixed. One final point on Mayhem: rerolling modifiers is a very clunky experience, and I think there should just be a button somewhere in the game, because as of now, you guys know the drill. You reload the game, you quit to main menu, load the game back up, and you have different modifiers. It's super quick, I won't lie about that, but it's unintuitive. It's just kind of strange that this is the gameplay loop that we're experiencing. So maybe give us a button just to re-roll the modifiers so we can get something that we want. On a similar note, the end game of Borderlands needs tweaking, and there are several issues plaguing it right now. First and foremost, I think that anointed enemies are far and away the toughest type that you are going to face, bar none, regardless of your skills or whatever loadout you have. And the issue here is not that they're hard. I'm not against tough enemies, but they only appear with COV groups. In the course of the story, that kind of makes sense because things are paced appropriately and Gearbox very carefully placed these guys. And then I would even say that with Mayhem and ratcheting that up to Mayhem 3, they placed these strategically and said, this is supposed to be a very tough part. Here's some anointed, deal with that. However, once you're getting into Proving Grounds and Circle of Slaughter, some of these are COV themed exclusively. You're not going to see other enemy types in them, which means the ones that feature COV are going to have anointed and thus are much more difficult than the other ones. There's really no reason to do those. The Maliwan Proving Grounds or the Wildlife Circle of Slaughter. That is an issue. And so either we need to make tougher enemy types for Maliwan and the wildlife, or they just need to nerf anointed because it creates a huge imbalance as it is right now. On top of that, our endgame activities need to feel more rewarding. Proving Grounds right now is not worth the time it takes. It's incredibly difficult to get all of those optional objectives, especially completing one of those runs with 25 minutes left. And those optional objectives don't seem to improve loot at all. I don't know if it's just me, but in my testing, this is not an effective way to play the endgame. You're not going to get shots at the legendary items that you would get in other modes. So it just feels like a waste of time. Circle of Slaughter is okay. I think it could go either way, but if you're asking me personally, I think it should be just as rewarding as farming. Right now, when you're farming Grave Ward, I mean, that is the best way to get a lot of world drops as quickly as possible. Gigamind is also on that list too. Circle of Slaughter is very far down. So if that can be more rewarding, then I think a lot of people would do that more often. Finally, I think Guardian rank should be looked at as the overall meta progression because it feels underwhelming, and the diminishing returns you get from each individual point spent just makes it feel bleh. You know, at a certain point, it's like, what's the point of spending my Guardian rank? It's only going to change something by a fraction of a percent. Yeah, the perks are kind of cool, but they don't impact gameplay as much as I'd like them to. Of course, you always run into power creep as an issue, and I'm sure that's why they made Guardian rank kind of a slow burn, similar to the Paragon system in Diablo, but I think that system also has its flaws too, so I just feel like they need to work on this. Events need to be more impactful. Now, I will concede that we've only had 3 weeks of the first event for Borderlands, so we haven't had a full taste of what's to come. However, so far, I'm definitely disappointed. Week 1 was the boss event where they had, you know, higher drop rates for legendaries, and that was just disappointing because several bosses, for me at least, required more than 10 downs to get the item. And if they're not buffing the drop rate to more than 10%, that's just kind of underwhelming. I'm not sure what the magic number is, but 37, which is what it took to get one of these items, is certainly not it. Week 2 was the rare spawn event, and that was a little underwhelming too, because many of these guys already showed up frequently enough to grab their loot before this event started. And maybe that's just the super power gamers that play a lot of Borderlands 3, but I felt the same thing. It felt underwhelming. And then week 3 so far to many players feels underwhelming because Iridium is plentiful. There are so many ways to farm it, so many items to throw on. You've got Mayhem mode, which boosts your gains on that. And then the only rewards here are to spend it on cosmetics and the occasional veteran rewards item, which is very far and few between compared to what you can get from drops. Either we need more exciting things to spend our Iridium on, or this is just kind of a bust as an event, and I wouldn't do something like this moving forward. Next, we have a Twitch event in week 4, and then a spooky surprise for the Bloody Harvest event that's going on for week 5. So I don't pretend to be a game designer. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I think players want more memorable and impactful events, a chance to get items that they can't get otherwise. Limited time items, for example, would be super memorable and reward players who hop on weekly. My final change to round out my top 5 is for replaying the game, and this is a very small thing, but I promise almost every single player out there is really wanting this, and that's being able just have the option to skip cutscenes. If you plan to play Borderlands 3 through the story more than once, this is something you're going to run into, and I would argue that's a vast majority of players. If you plan to level all of the Vault Hunters to 50, you're going to play through Borderlands many, many times over the years. In fact, it's going to be 8 times total, and you might even do more than that. So that means that you're going to watch the same cutscenes 8 times. At this point, it should be assumed that players want this option. It's just an industry-wide expectation for games that have cutscenes. Give me a button that allows me to skip it. And if you are someone who's coming back to the game after a year and you forgot the story and you want to experience it, there it is for you. You don't have to skip it. But for those who are trying to get through this and trying to get to the loot and trying to max out all their Vault Hunters to 50, we would really appreciate the option to skip cutscenes. Just a disclaimer, because I know this was more of a negative video than I've made for Borderlands 3. I love the game. I think it's fantastic, and there are a lot of great decisions made for this, particularly not requiring you to be online. That's great. And also not having any microtransactions. I think that is awesome, and they really killed it there. But again, games can always improve, and these were the things that I thought needed to be improved moving forward. In the comment section, tell me which change you think this game needs most, and if it's something that I didn't list, please feel free to add it in the comment section. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with, so share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, and remember to subscribe and hit the bell to turn on notifications for more Borderlands 3 content. Stay up to date with all of my content by following me on social media and join my community over on our partner Discord server. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.